everybody has a role in life. Like, everybody's been an actor before, where you kind of like maneuver through these spaces and act a certain type of way. But when have we ever been able to say that we felt like we weren't acting? Like, I think that it's my job when I am not on screen to not be acting, to be truly experiencing the world and everything that it's offering, all of the good, all of the bad, like truly having a spiritual experience. Yeah. I think that's my job. So I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from acting, is when I'm not acting, I shouldn't be acting.
All right. Yeah, right here. Okay, ready? Mm-hmm. All right, and 3, 2. So Casino was probably one of my favorite movies, and I love it because of the writing. I love the setting. I love mob movies. But there's something special about so many scenes in that movie, and it's because of the acting. You have Joe Pesci going crazy on people. You have Robert De Niro. He was just so debonair, but he was still like, a wise guy. You have Goodfellas is another one of my favorites. As you can see, this is the theme, mob movies. But again, you have so many great things about film, but one of the best things about film to me is acting. And acting is such an art form that's so pure, so honest, and you could do so much by saying so little. You can have some of the best scenes with no dialogue whatsoever, and it takes the best actors and actresses to pull that off. Again, one more thing, Sopranos is one of my favorites. Everybody knows that. If you know me, you know I love Sopranos. And The Sopranos does very well with their writing, but the actors are just amazing, man. R.I.P. James Gandolfini, probably one of the best to ever pull that off and ever pull off acting. Just completely switches it. So I had to have an actress on here today who is doing her thing, and honestly, she understands her role in society as far as a black woman, and is taking it to the big screen as far as, messages and just acting as a whole. And I'm so glad and honored to have her here, because we might not be able to get her next year, because she might, you never know. But DeShon Green is here, and she's here on For All We Know to share, her acting journey, and it's ongoing. And that's it's a thing. So clink it up. We have to clink it up on For All We Know.
Up. Yes.
DeShon Green is here to tell us about her acting.
Got me wine, y'all. Mm-hmm. That's fancy.
Mm-hmm. We try a little bit over here. We do what we can.
I appreciate it.
But I guess I kind of want to start with not necessarily just acting, but like you as a person. Like, where did you grow up? And then eventually we could get to the acting, but where did you grow up, and like how were you raised and things like that?
Absolutely. So I have the pleasure of saying that I am one of the few Atlanta natives that are left here.
Very rare.
But I grew up on the south side of Atlanta, which I am very proud of. I grew up in Clayton County, and it has a great responsibility in who I became because of what I experienced. I think that I have always been kind of like this kind of cookie cutter, all about the books type of girl. Very, like, people probably would have described me as book smart, but I had the pleasure of having a little bit of street smarts, having grown up on the south side of Atlanta. So I think having both of those things and that duality is what makes me me. I have had professional experiences where people don't expect that of me. There's something about like the black experience where if you grew up in certain areas, they don't expect you to be educated and to be able to articulate yourself.
Very interesting.
So with that being said, I think I've experienced some of those moments, especially with my collegiate career and where I attended and what that experience worked like for me, that kind of shaped who I am. I always like to tell people that, like, it's ironic that I didn't find my blackness until I got to college. I had been so immersed in a black experience for so long, I didn't know anything else. And I attended a PWI, and being in that, like, strict, I don't know, it was a kind of a culture shock, basically, that shaped me. I think that I found myself in adulthood. So a lot of like who I became is not necessarily super influenced by my childhood. I think that there was a lot of really great seeds planted in me early on with the influences I had from other people. But like who DeShon is today and who I want people to get from me, all of this came from things that I learned in my adulthood in terms of like maturity and like the way you carry yourself and like the importance of being a light in all of the darkness that's going on around us. Like I think I learned all of that by standing firmly in who I was. And a lot of times growing up, people want to tell you how like all of those experiences grew and shaped them. But I think I kind of always had been sure of myself as a kid, even with like, you know, people picking on you and things like that. So when I got to this space in life, it just felt like, okay, here's how I show up in the world. And that's the one thing that I think best describes me. I usually describe myself as light or as living art. Those are the two ways that I describe myself. And I'm a vessel. So as an artist and as an actress, I get to be a vessel and I get to carry a torch and tell the stories of those that came before us, our ancestors, people I know, people I don't know. And that's me in a nutshell.
That's
probably a walnut shell. That was a lot, huh?
That was a big one. It's interesting that you said that because I feel like I like kind of discovered my blackness like truly when I moved to the South.
Really?
I
can see that.
I think so because it's I don't know. It's different in California than it is in
I can see that
in Georgia and stuff. So that's interesting. So, you know, you started acting. Was that in adulthood as well, or?
No. So I think my purpose found me very early and like chased me into adulthood. So when I was in the 5th grade, I was in a private school. We had a very small drama club, and I thought it was corny to be a part of it at first because there wasn't very many people. But Mr. Davis at the time was like, "I think you're gonna love this. I think this is for you." So I joined the drama club, and the first production we did was "I'll Be Home for Christmas." And I had like I was a radio spot on there. So we had like a radio moment where we got to do all these different commercials. And that was all I did in that play. After that, I was like, all this time, that's all I got to do? I don't know if I really am enjoying this. The second time, I had a bigger role. I was in Joseph in the Amazing Technicolor Dreamcoat. It's a super long play, but it was like the turning point in my life. I played a brother. And I remember at first being annoyed because I'm like, I'm in the 5th grade. I don't want to be seen as a boy. I'm going through puberty. I want boys to see me as a girl. I'm like, I don't want to get up there and dress like a boy. But it was the most rewarding role that I've ever had because that day, at the end of our first show, having the audience stand up and clap and cheer and then approach us after and talk about what they felt from the performance meant so much to me. Like, it's the transferring of energies that we get to do as artists. Like, we get to pull people into these moments. They get to feel them with us, and they get to trust us, you know, with these emotions that we've all explored before in a way that is, like, so precious. So I think that was, like, the biggest turning point for me. I was like, this is it. And then I didn't know how to do it, like, or how I was going to get into it. I didn't have parents who were like, you know, the momager who could like make sure I got into certain rooms. But my mom supported me like through it all. Like, she was just trying things. Like, she knew I wanted to act. She opened a newspaper one day. They were auditioning for Lion King, and she's like, we're going to go down there. And my mom was so nuts. We were the first people in line. We slept there overnight, and I woke up the next morning and auditioned. And I just remember, like, that entire experience and how important that was to me because I also had the support. So I was fortunate enough to have the support. So by the time I became an adult, like, I don't see myself doing anything else. So every time I tell people who I am, I describe myself now as an actress and a filmmaker. But I've always said that, like, I'm not aspiring. I'm doing it. Like, I can give you proof of the things that I've done. I'm not big, but I'm doing it.
Yeah, I did not introduce you as an aspiring actress because aspiring means you want to do it, but you're doing it.
Absolutely. Once you do something and you're paid for it, they say that's what marks you as professional. You know. So I got a couple checks to prove it.
Hey, you know, go ahead, stunt. But so that's theater in itself. Like, so how did working in theater help you like transition to film? Like, what are those things that you kind of took with you to be like, okay, I want to use these kind of things from like things I've learned?
I think theater provides like the perfect blueprint for a transition into film. I know that there are some things about theater that are like larger than life that don't translate in film, but if you can go there, then you can bring it back. I think sometimes what happens when actors come from film and they go to theater, sometimes it's harder for them to go there because they're used to living in like this very grounded and authentic depiction of reality, and plays do the exact opposite of that. They kind of have to make them bigger. They have to exaggerate them for the sake of stage. So I think for me, the transition was just trying to figure out how can I like find myself in this very like grounded space, which is like, that's also a personal experience you have to have too. So I think there's a lot of work that goes into, emotional work that goes into being an actor that people don't see when we perform. They're like, oh, you learned the lines and you said them. Yeah, but like I have to be a pretty decent human to be able to recreate a human experience for you. Exactly. So I think that what I learned from theater is like all of these big exaggerations kind of come off as like caricatures in a way that like translate really easy to film, like in the most magnificent ways. And there's a lot of actors who do it and are great at it. Like they can make that switch back and forth from stage to film. Like Samuel L. Jackson does it all the time. Like these big actors are taking, you know, and Denzel does it as well. They're taking their film skills and just amplifying them for stage, and they're taking those stage skills and then, you know, minimizing them for film. But I think that there's something great about being well-rounded that is not always appreciated in like modern day art in general, like being able to tap into everything, because sometimes they're like, don't be a master of too many things. But
and it's live.
There's a skill to that.
It's live. I don't think people realize it's so live. Like film,
whatever
be like,
goes,
cut,
goes.
Let me do it again.
No, whatever goes, goes. And that's how you're remembered by that audience.
Man.
You get another impression the next day, but it's like that day, the people that saw it, that's all they have of that show is you making your mistake or missing your line or whatever. So it's like a lot of pressure, but you get comfortable and you develop like a familial kind of feeling with the crew and with the cast themselves. So now you all kind of work together to make sure that, you know, things like that happen. We pick it up with some improv.
So you've been in a couple of them. You've been in Ruined.
Yes.
In the Red and Brown Water, and then For Color Girls.
Yes, sir.
What, if you could pull something from at least one of them, what did you learn from those productions? Yes.
Okay. I think I would have to go with In the Red and Brown Water.
Okay.
That's a play written by Terrell Alvin McCraney. You might be familiar with his work if you've seen Moonlight. But he wrote a trilogy of plays called the Sister and Brother plays, and they kind of just explore like coming of age stories. So it was a perfect time for me to be having exposure to this kind of work because I was in college. And also to explore the character that I played. So this particular play has like odes to different gods and goddesses, and Shun is who I got to play, Oshun, which is, you know, pretty popularized by like Beyonce and with the yellow outfit and things like that. But that role was completely out of my wheelhouse. And I remember getting cast for it and feeling like, how am I supposed to play this role? Like I didn't feel like I was equipped, because a lot of it, like I said, is recreating human experience. And I just didn't feel like I had the experience of this character, and I didn't want to not do it justice. So I struggled a lot with that, and I think that's why that role meant so much to me. I struggled with like kind of pushing myself out of a comfort zone. I had so much comfort in drama and like, you know, being able to tap into emotions, because most people are emotional, but like tapping into some comedy and into being a little sultry was something that was like, okay. Because I mean, I don't know if you can tell by my aesthetic, I'm like your brother's little sister. I'm not like the girl next door. You know what I'm saying? So because of that, like tapping into some things that are a little bit more risque or sultry was hard for me. But it also was a perfect time for me to be like exploring that when I was coming into my womanhood. So I think that play offered me so much because it's so well written, and it shows Black women in particular in ways that are so complex that it made me feel like I didn't have to be one way.
Okay, which is
I
true.
could have all of these dualities. I could have all of these intersectionalities to who I was, and that was like so rewarding.
Yeah, you owned it. So you said something very interesting. You said acting is an art that can be used to share a better society. What did you mean by that?
So I speak weirdly when I'm performing. I always say that I'm like, friends with my characters. So like if I'm doing a show, I used to make the joke it's kind of like a Disney thing too. If you know anyone who's ever worked at Disney World, they don't tell you that they play particular characters. Right. They say they're going to visit that person or they're friends with said person. So I've kind of shared that same experience with my characters. Like I meet these people, I understand who they are because I don't want to judge them. Sometimes you look at a character and you see that they're doing bad things in a script and you decide, oh, they're a bad person, I'm going to act like this the entire time. But there's also like layers to that. Sometimes people have emotional experiences that make them feel that way, or anxiety could be making them feel that way. So I think that in terms of like creating a better society, what we're doing as artists is we're showing you all of these different life experiences that you might not have to experience. Like how many movies have you watched and you're like, oh, I don't live like that. Yeah. That ain't how my family lives. But you get to get an insight in that, and you also get to humanize that experience. There's been like tons of different shows that I've watched growing up in terms of sitcoms that I'm like, that's not my experience. It's not that peachy. However, I can like understand that experience because and I can understand it.
It's a experience.
It is an experience. It's just not my experience. So I think in sharing those experiences, that's how we recreate or we rebuild humanity. I think that's the biggest thing that has us doing a lot of the crazy things that we're doing right now. People are not considering the humans, the people, the emotions that are in the spirits that they're affecting. They're just making choices.
That's true. So, you know, when you get like a role or something like that, how do you prepare for it? How do you prepare for a role?
In terms of preparation, I think a lot of that for me is kind of rigid because of my theater upbringing. I started theater, like I said, in 5th grade. I went to an art school, so I spent 4 years of my high school career like heavy in the books, but also heavy like in the craft. And then I went straight to college and was even further like deeper in the craft. So I think that for me, the best way that I can explain it is like kind of tackling it, like I said, not judging the character, but kind of tackling it from a space where you can be very open with exploring the world of the character. So understanding where they live, how they relate to other people, understanding through the text, because some of it's written in the script, like how they communicate and why that might be different. Some people are more morbid, some people are more satirical. Like you want to know those type of things based on the text, but you also want to kind of like let the character form in front of you as you're going. Like you're doing all this research and you're seeing like, oh, this person probably would be a little bit more poised. They might be like in a lot of scenes where they're sitting up, or they're like really well postured, or this character might be a little bit more lax. They're probably going to be like sitting back in their chair. Like every aspect matters, not just the mental, but the physical behavior that you have as an actor. So I think for me, I'm tackling it from all aspects to create a 3-dimensional character so that this person is like, I can understand their psyche, I can understand how they communicate, and then I can understand how they feel and relate to people around them. So like the way they might have body language, basically.
Right. So with the industry today, it's very competitive, I'm sure.
Yes.
Extremely. How do you stay motivated?
I'd have to say my village and my creator. I think God constantly motivates me in ways that are quite interesting. Like I might not book a role, but if I get down to the last 2, I'm like, he's saying keep going. Yeah,
at least I got to the last 2.
He's saying like if you've done this, you can keep, like you can book. If you're down to the last 2, you can be the last one. So a lot of that comes from my spiritual motivation. But then like in terms of my village, I have, like I said before, like I am so fortunate enough to have had like friends and family that were very supportive of what I wanted to do, and that are still so supportive of what I want to do. And they don't make me feel like you could go get a real job, or you know, like some people are having that experience as creatives. Don't tell your creative friend that, okay? Don't tell them to get a real job. But just like all those things like that kind of are like opposing. I don't get that from the people that are closest to me. That's so good. That helps. Yeah, I'm getting that from outside people, which I'm like, I've built up enough morale to work past that.
I think we also live in a time where Jim Carrey said something really interesting. He said, you're going to fail at anything that you do, so you might as well fail doing what you love. And I feel like these days people understand, like, look, you know, we have creatives. That's, you know, it's not back in like the 1960s where you have to go get a real, not saying it's not a real job, but like an industrial job or anything like that. You know, you can do things, you can do other things that pay the bills. So that's a very interesting thing. So with you being a Black actress, what impact do you hope to have like on the industry, and like, do you find yourself trying to like break stereotypes with some of the roles?
Absolutely. Okay. I love the craft, and I'm like, I've always kind of like been very deep in television and in movies, so much so that it's kind of like, dang, like I probably have always lived in a daydream. I could be living in a daydream right now and probably wouldn't know, but like, it's something about seeing those worlds. But it's also something about like stepping back after you've, consumed that entertainment and being like, but where do I fit into that? And I think I had a lot of those experiences. I was a kid who grew up and I would watch Saved by the Bell every day on my way to the bus. So in my head, I was Lisa Turtle. Lisa Turtle didn't look exactly like me, but she was a black woman. Right. I was Lisa Turtle. So I had like found a way to fit myself into that world. And then I would watch something like, because I was a Disney kid too, I'd watch something like Lizzie McGuire. Okay. And I'd be like, where do I fit in this world? And like those kind of spaces were not like, I don't want to say that they put a damper or anything, but they kind of fueled my creativity more, because I was a kid that would pull out my composition notebook and then write myself into the show. Like find a way where I could be like the kid who just transferred or something. Like I was trying to figure out how I could fit in those worlds where I wasn't present. And then like I had the pleasure of seeing Raven-Symoné do that. I had the pleasure of seeing Tia and Tamara Mowry do that. Like run show, like Zendaya and Keke Palmer, they all went on to be showrunners on the places where I was like, where's a face like mine? Or even growing up and having seen all that, watching Kenan and Kel, they weren't women, but it didn't matter to me. It was seeing someone that looked like me on screen doing something that was unique. So I think for me, being a black actress, or a Blacktress, as sometimes we refer to it as, I feel like I have a little bit of a responsibility to be an artivist, and not to any extreme measures, but like sometimes, yes. Like, I mean, you are privy to my piece At All Costs, and I just kind of feel like that was a piece I wanted to tell exactly how I feel like it would have transpired. I don't want to give any fluff. I don't want to give any sprinkles on a real situation. So if anything, as a black artist, I think it's my responsibility to tell authentic stories that I know. You know what I'm saying? I can only speak from my experience, and that's with my intersectionalities as being like a cisgendered female black woman who lives in the South Side of Atlanta, on the East Coast of the U.S. Like all of the things that are specific to that experience, that's the stories I can tell. Or stories that are similar that I can dive into, but I think there's so much responsibility in telling those authentically that like it sucks when you see productions that are put on and they don't look like your authentic experience, and you're like, we don't live like that. That's not what it is. So even when they do have people who look like you, it's still not reflective of your experience. That's damaging too. So I think that's why I want to get into a space where I'm not just, an actress. I'm an all-around artist and creative who's stepping into the gaps. And I can say, hey, this is not it, or speak up even as an actress and say, hey, I wouldn't say this, or we wouldn't do this, just so that I can make sure that I'm being authentic and responsible with the craft for the sake of my community.
It is. It's a huge responsibility because somebody's daughter is watching you.
Yes.
Millions of people. Like
I just told you, the people I was watching. Like I could imagine the amount of pressure they had because they were kids. They were all kids.
Yep.
So like I can only imagine the pressure they were feeling at that age to be and act and present themselves to the world in a certain type of way, because that's how the world saw them.
Yep. I wonder if they did. I'm sure they did.
Oh yeah.
I'm sure they did.
I'm sure.
So can you recall like a experience where you collabed with like an actor or a director that really, really was like, okay, I need to either change how I'm doing things, or like it really had a significant impact on you?
Yeah. I would have to say my first ever independent feature film, I was kind of really nervous about going into the process because feature films are a lot, and I had looked at all the scenes, and I was also being required to play a role that I think looked more mature than my look. So I was like, I really have to deliver because the maturity level has to, outweigh the appearance, because I know I look young. So I was really concerned about all those things, and I had a director who truly believed in me, and she was like, I fought for you to be here. I believe that you can do this. Trust yourself. Let's do it.
Go out there and do it, yeah.
And it was kind of like the little, pat on the back I needed to get out there and do it. And after that, I had a lot more confidence in myself to take on, like, the heavy emotional shifts you have in one day shooting a feature film. Like, you can go from an extremely high that day, and then like midday you got to go to an extreme low. But by the end of the day, we're doing another comedic scene where you have to come back up. So it's like a little bit of an emotional roller coaster. But that experience and the support of my director is what got me through, and kind of ultimately, like you said earlier, it's a journey. Yeah. So it was like a big hill in my journey where I was like, okay, I got to fight to get over this one. But once I get over this one, it's going to look good on the other side. Yeah. So it was definitely a positive learning experience.
So, I mean, that was one really significant, like, behind the scenes moment you had with, you said, the director?
Yes.
So do you have any other, like, behind the scenes moments where it really was eye-opening for you, either good or bad?
Yeah, I'll give a bad one since I just gave a good one.
Okay.
But it wasn't bad. It turned out to be good because it was a learning experience. But I went to Kennesaw State. Okay. So I transferred to Kennesaw State, and my beloved director of the show that I booked there, like we audition for shows and we get cast pretty much like at the top of the year, and then we work for each semester. And I got cast for the spring production, which meant that we would start like rehearsals and stuff in the fall.
Okay.
But we had audition that spring. So we had the whole summer to like, you know, kind of after being cast to kind of get into the script and start doing the work. I was young. I didn't do the work. I just kind of was like, I can do the work when I get there. We got all fall. The show's not till next spring. I'm going to be... Yeah, a little bit of irresponsibility. I was young. I was in college. So I show up, and it was a play that was based in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So it demanded that we had a particular African accent that was specific to that region of Africa.
And you didn't do your homework.
I didn't do my homework.
No.
So they brought in all the people, and like they taught us throughout the time. But the moment that was like so pivotal in this was when we came back and we did our table read. Some people weren't even looking at their scripts. So people were off book. People had already practiced the dialect, and it sounded phenomenal. Mm-hmm. I met a gentleman there. This was my first time working with him. I'm going to shout him out, Avery Sharp. This man is a beast, amazing actor. He came already like well-versed. Like first of all, he introduced himself to me with the African dialect. So he was already there.
So he
you know, already there, but like I had these people to look up to because they were juniors at the time and seniors when I became a junior. And they were like so good. It made me think I need to figure out how to be undeniable. You talked about how competitive this is. That was a learning curve. I felt like trash. But that day when I went home, you better believe I knew all my lines when I came back.
Yeah, with the accent and everything.
You know, with the accent and everything. Like, as best as I could, I still had to play catch up. But, like, once I got there, I was proud of the work I did with that play. But, my goodness, like, that is an eye-opener. You think you're good at something, and someone shows you that they're better, it's like, step your game up. Iron sharpens iron. They spent the whole summer learning their lines, and I was out having a good time. I felt so bad.
Wow.
I felt so bad.
The life lessons that you learn, most of the ones where you fall.
Oh, man. Fell flat on my face.
Yeah.
I cried in the car, but I was like, I'm going to hold it together in here.
You got to get it together, man. Quick. That's funny. So I want to go back to something you said about you being living art. Yeah. And you talking about at all costs. I want to go back to that. So with being living art, talk to us a little bit about how, you know, you showcase that with At All Costs, and tell us a little bit more about that project.
For sure. So At All Costs was a very divine experience. I am a tad bit impulsive, but that's because I'm very passionate. So I quit a job to go to the American Black Film Festival because I requested the days and they didn't give them to me. And I had already paid for my ticket, and I knew that I needed to be there. So I quit my job and I went. And it was the most inspiring experience. While we were there, one of my co-writers called me and my other co-writer, and they were like, hey, I have this idea. I want to work with you guys. We can talk more about it when you guys get back, though. Okay. So this is all happening while I'm at this festival. And when we left, me and my, she's a good friend of mine, but she's also my partner. She was like, we got to come back. I was like, yeah, next time we come back, we got to come back with a film. So we were kind of already in the mindset of, like, you know, being fueled to do a film. We had no idea that we were going to come back and, like, so quickly start working on one. So we started working on the film. The original concept was to protect Black women, which is important to me. So, like, kind of touching on the living art moment in this piece, like, well, touching on the living art moment. I think that for me, the living part of it is like the evolving and ever changing part of it. So like I'm not very rigid in a certain type of way that I want to be. I flow. And I think that's what makes me such a well-rounded artist. Like I'm not rigid in like I want to do this in this only and I want to do it in this way. Like there's something about being fluid and living and able to be flexible. Yeah. That's kind of what that odes to. But going back to the project, we came back, we hit the ground running, we completed the script, and we were ready to start filming. We didn't know how we were going to film in terms of like the budget because
money is a thing.
Money is a thing, and we were seeking investors, but we were kind of left in the dark for a moment. So we were like, we know we want to get this done. How bad are we wanting to do it? And we were like, we need to be done by January because the festival we want to enter, they need the film by February. So we were thinking about like editing and all of that. Well, we didn't have the money. And I had just quit my job again because I had another job that I quit. Sorry, I'm just being honest here.
Hey.
And I was like, okay, I'm going to be a rideshare driver. We can do it. So all three of us were rideshare drivers, and we got the money we needed to film this short.
Wow.
And the irony to that is like that birthed me and my partner's production company, Carpool Productions, because we were rideshare drivers, and like our whole concept was like we're riding for change, like, you know, artists riding for change. So that's what we wanted to do. Like we're gonna figure it out, we're getting this done.
Genius.
We got it done, and I'm so proud of it because it's a piece that's showing that the protection of Black women stems far beyond just like strictly protecting Black women. Like the protection of Black women starts with like breaking down systemic racism. It starts like with restructuring government. Like it goes way bigger than just the protection of Black women. So we show that with a film within a film where they watch some of the pieces that you saw in the trailer, and then the class gets to discuss it. And that classroom scene is so pivotal because everybody's sharing from their life experiences what it was like to watch that. And I think that is like essentially what makes the piece fluid and makes it authentic. We get to share everybody's experiences, and ultimately we get to hear everybody's feedback. So we're not, you know, pushing anyone in any particular agenda with that piece. So I'm very proud of it.
Nice. I can't wait to see it. I saw the trailer.
I'm gonna have to make sure I get you to see it. I'll get you a link.
Yeah, you got to get
you a
link. But you express a lot of different lessons that you learned. Obviously, showing up to the script reading on a good note with the dialect. But what other lessons have you learned, like, or are still learning with being an actress?
I think being an actress calls you to be very self-aware. And that is like a frightening reality. Like when you enter into a space of self-awareness, it requires a lot more of you. And because of that, like I feel like I have been doing a lot of shadow work in my adult age. Like I said, I kind of like breezed through my childhood where I didn't really pay attention to some of the damages and the traumas that I was experiencing. So now in adulthood, I'm looking back and I'm like, well, I guess it does have a little responsibility for this, you know, in ways that I didn't quite understand. And therapy helps that too.
Everything starts at childhood, man.
Man, you just never know, like, the things that are, you know, the seeds that are planted. But like I said, I am very thankful that I had some good seeds that were planted. So I think in terms of life lessons, I'm just always learning the importance of truly being in tune with who I am and showing up that way and that way only, with only that in mind.
Yeah.
Because sometimes when you show up and you're concerned about others, it makes you shrink, or it causes you anxiety, or you don't feel like you can be yourself 100%, or whatever the case may be. So sometimes, like, everybody has a role in life. Like, everybody's been an actor before, where you kind of like maneuver through these spaces and act a certain type of way. But when have we ever been able to say that we felt like we weren't acting? Like, I think that it's my job when I am not on screen to not be acting, to be truly experiencing the world and everything that it is offering, all of the good, all of the bad, like truly having a spiritual experience.
Yeah.
I think that's my job. So I think that's the biggest lesson that I've learned from acting is when I'm not acting, I shouldn't be acting.
When you're not acting, don't act. No, that's extremely insightful. So if you could, just changing gears a little bit, if you could step into a movie and have, like, you know, be the characters of that movie, what movie would it be?
Man, okay. I like feel-good television.
Okay.
So I like a lot of coming-of-age stories. And ironically, one of my favorite movies, it's not even ironic because it's a classic.
Okay.
I'm going to speak confidently. I love the movie Love Don't Cost a Thing.
I thought you were going to say ATL. Okay.
I probably would have said ATL, but I don't think that it hits me the way that Love Don't Cost a Thing.
Okay.
That's a good movie to me. I think it's because I am also like, there's something that I can identify with being like the nerd who like comes into themselves and then they have to like understand what it means to be like loved by people when you feel like you've been like bottled up for so long, like social skills basically. I love that narrative in that piece. I think it's interesting that it has to be at the hands of a popular person, but I think that shows status too. So in a lot of ways, it's not just like coming of age stories seem so basic, like, oh, they're just kids being kids, but like it's greater narrative to that.
Yeah.
Like there's a commentary about the way that we interact with one another when we have like all these separate groups. Like there's something about the way that we do that in real life.
Right. What's the movie? My Fair Lady-ish.
Oh yes.
That's my mom used to watch that all the time.
Really?
Yeah. But no, it's true. It's a lot deeper than people think that it is.
I think so. I think it's also, I mean, sometimes if it just feels good, it just feels good. You know what I'm saying? And there's a lot of really good moments in that movie. Like, I made you, Al, and I work overtime to break you. And she breaks that toothpick in his face. It's like, come on. These are great moments.
So,
Classic.
okay. What iconic character would you be from a movie? It doesn't have to be Love Don't Cost a Thing.
Okay.
That's tough.
Iconic character from a movie. Let me pick wisely.
Okay.
I'm going to say, and I'm really disappointed in myself because I love Babs, but I can't think of her name in it. But I would be Halle Berry in Babs.
Oh, okay.
That's also one of my other guilty pleasures. I love Babs.
Classic.
It's got some Atlanta in there, so there's that part. But it's just like, I can't imagine they didn't have a good time filming that. And I can't imagine that they didn't have like some really good moments where they could, tap into some emotion too. And that
completely out of her.
It's completely different, but I know she had a good time.
Yeah.
I know that probably was like the more fulfilling pieces because it's like something about that piece feels like family when you're watching it. Like the irony that at the end they all come together and he like gifts them their wigs and wings, like the money to make wigs and wings. Like all of that just is something like special. Maybe I just like really anything that has like an inspiring through line. Maybe I'm corny. Maybe I like the happy ending. I don't know.
I saw Babs on the other day.
I love Babs.
Classic.
I love this scene with the spotlight when they dance. Yeah. They slow dance.
It's
my
a good
favorite
one, man. It's a good one. So we know about your acting.
Yes. And
we know about, your skills, but I have to put you to the test. And this is a surprise. DeShon does not know what's about to happen.
And I should have asked. I'm stupid. I had an opportunity.
I got an audience member to give me an impromptu scene.
Okay.
I'm going to act out with you, so I'm more scared than you are because this is your wheelhouse. This ain't mine.
Okay.
So this is the scene. This is interesting. We are brother and sister.
Okay.
You are in my wedding. You are at my wedding in Jamaica. It's the day of the wedding. Mm-hmm. You're in the room. You're watching me and the groom's in. Get ready. And you get an email. We run a successful company together.
Okay.
You get an email from your accountant that I've been stealing money about, let's make it fun, about $20,000 a month that he has noticed. And it is my wedding day. Mm-hmm. And now you're in the room with me. Mm-hmm. So now
look at me already in character.
You're about to address me.
Okay.
As I'm getting ready. So let me put these down. Hold on. Okay. So if I could, can the camera people yell action? I'll say cut, but can one of you guys say action? Ryan, Austin, no? All right. Hold on. Let me just pretend I'm getting ready. Okay. And obviously you have the first line because I don't know what the hell is going on.
You want a character name or you want to pick up?
Surprise me.
Okay.
Do you want to I'll give you a character name too.
Okay. Just surprise me.
I'll think of one. Okay.
Lord Jesus, here we go.
Action.
You look fine, Darius.
I know. I'm just trying to make sure, Liv would be very upset if I showed up looking,
Oh, absolutely.
half,
I mean,
you know.
Definitely.
Nervous.
Speaking of, everything looks beautiful. I'm sure it cost you guys a pretty penny.
It was like, I want to get into dollar amounts, but it was probably about 40.
Wow. 40,000?
Yeah. You got to think, we flew out mom and dad.
Absolutely.
It was a lot, man.
And how were you guys working on this? Did you guys split the cost, or maybe her parents helped or something?
Come on. It's the day of the wedding. Come on. We'll talk about it, though. We'll talk about it. When is your turn? It's your turn. We'll talk about it.
We can talk about it now.
What is there to talk about? We work. The business is doing good. What is there to talk about?
And are we being paid adequately?
Yeah. You checked with Jim, right?
Yeah, Jim actually contacted me about some expenses that he saw come up on our accounts.
Okay.
Some unannounced expenses that have been coming out of the accounts for, I'd say, about the last 6 months, which lines up pretty evenly to the time that you proposed to Rebecca.
It's okay. It was like business trips and stuff. We had the conferences and.
There's an itemized report, but I don't think we have to get into that today. You're the one who wanted to postpone this conversation.
I don't understand why you're bringing this up now. What does it have to do with me?
All right. Don't bullshit me. You took the money.
No, I didn't. What are you talking about?
I got the email. I have the reports. You took the money.
How do you have what reports? I don't even know what you're saying right now.
Do me a favor and don't ruin this day for both you and Rebecca, because as quickly as you got into that suit, you can quickly get out of it, because if you sell that back and we get rid of these flowers and that ring on Rebecca's hand, you can give us back what we owe.
I'm actually really hurt that you would even think I would take money from our business. Why would I do that?
You know what? You're right. I don't even know why I brought it up.
I don't know why either. I think you're jealous because
it's jealous?
Yeah, because you and Brian didn't work out and then you had to come to Jamaica.
This isn't about me and Brian. It's about the real and firm fact that you took the money. But what am I doing expecting you to be responsible, to practice integrity?
Okay. Now you sound like Dad. But okay, that's fine.
Like Dad?
Yeah. Now you sound. You know what?
The man who coddled you all these years, and who's probably the reason why you think it's okay to have robbed our company of thousands of dollars. We're talking almost $500,000 for whatever this experience is today. Let's be clear. I also am very much aware that Rebecca is not your only suitor. You
know what? I think right now, I just need you to leave. Can you leave the room, because you're ruining my day. I would never do that to you. You're ruining my day. So we'll talk about this later, because this is ridiculous.
You're right.
Yeah.
You're ridiculous.
Okay. And cut. That was good.
That was so fun.
That was good.
I love it. Good improv.
But thank you so much for doing this craziness with me.
First of all, give it up for the acting chops, okay? Did y'all see him fiddling with his costume, okay? He had the suits,
I had to
sleeves
sell it.
going.
I had to sell it. Thank you so much for being on this show. For all we know, this is the first impromptu scene that has ever happened on the show.
I'm honored.
So thank you for adapting to my foolishness. And talking about the everything regarding acting, and at all costs, I have to see it.
Yes, I'm going to get you a link.
Yes.
You can hold me accountable, because if you're cutting this later and you're like, where's my link?
Yes, I'm
going to get you a link.
I need it. So shout out to DeShon Green. Thank you so much for being on the show.
Absolutely.
And thank you for watching. This is For All We Know. Be yourself, because everyone else is taken.
Woo! That was dope.